Welcome, everyone, to the DeVory Darkins Show. It is November 13th, Thursday. So much has happened this week, of course, from the economy to the government shutdown to Epstein. And this is the type of week that I would say, after, doing this for every single day, literally for at least a year so far, where it's a lot of stories that are really annoying. Just being transparent with you guys, of course. And it gets away from the real issues impacting everyday Americans. So the good news is in this show, we get to kind of circle back on that. So Gavin Newsom has suffered another major blow. Department of Transportation is revoking 17,000 commercial driver's licenses that they issued to non-citizens. So that's huge news, I would say. Also, more fallout from the government shutdown last night, more reactions, including a couple of topics regarding affordability and home ownership and the overall economy. We will get into that as well. But if you are new here, this is all about common sense commentary for these uncommon times. We go live 1 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. We also update you guys throughout the day with two other, I would say, rapid update videos that you can find on YouTube and sometimes on Rumble. And the reason why you should be tuning in and sharing this stream is because I'm not in the business of telling you what to think. I'm in the business of trying to give you the full picture of what's being reported, what's actually happening, and encouraging you to actually think for yourself. I think there are plenty of people who play to the fringes. I think there are plenty of people who scream into the echo chambers. But there's not a lot of people encouraging you, challenging you to critically think. And so that's what this show is all about. And if you feel that's for you, stick with us here, all right? So where we're going to start first is with Gavin Newsom and this whole debacle. Of course, we know that blood is on his hands, as some may say. We know he's an incompetent governor. I know this personally. I used to live in California. I would say he's destroyed California. That's why he projects a lot, tries to blame everything on the president when really he's talking about himself. Why is it that when you look at the entire nation, California still has high gas prices? Why is it that California is #1 in solar installation on residential homes, but still have the highest electricity prices? That has nothing to do with the president. So we can get into the high-speed rail. We can get into the Capitol building that costs over $1 billion, which is more than the White House ballroom, might I add, that hasn't been finished. They've been working on it for almost a decade now. We can go on and on and on. Homelessness as well. This guy is a complete failure. The problem is a lot of voters out there see his face and they start getting googly eyes as if he hasn't done anything wrong. These are the people we can't help. But the people who are open-minded, we can help them by giving them this new update regarding these commercial driver's licenses. Let's go ahead and play that now.
The Transportation Department is cracking down on California over issuing commercial driver's licenses to non-citizens. So this comes as the illegal migrant trucker accused in last month's fatal car crash in Florida is due in court for a hearing in the case. And William Lajeunesse is live in L.A. with more as Singh is his name, is going to be in court today. William?
Yeah, he's in court in Florida. We have another trucking fatality individual in court here in California today for that accident last month with diploma mills graduating unqualified drivers and hundreds of thousands of undocumented drivers who improperly or illegally obtained their license. Yesterday, Transportation Secretary Duffy said California had to cancel 17,000 CDLs to, quote, dangerous foreign drivers. The state says the Biden administration had allowed it to have asylum seekers with work permits drive big rigs. Duffy said the law never allowed that and forced the recall.
Yeah, so did you guys hear that? So it's the policies on the record. This is why your vote does matter. This is why your voice matters. Because when you have people shaping policy, especially these people who spend all their day in an office and never get out and actually touch grass or speak to real people, they come up with these fascinating ideas about what's going to work for our communities, our neighborhoods, our cities, our states. And it's only when the people start to become aware, start to educate themselves, start to push back, show up at these meetings and start voicing, they might reconsider. Now, obviously, if you live in California, you can scream until you're blue in the face. Nothing's going to change. It's a super majority, okay? They pass pieces of legislation without the input of the people. Now, obviously, I guess the people did have some level of input because these people have been elected, but I digress. Point being here is that 17,000 out of 65,000, okay, in case you guys are wondering what the total number is a good start. All right, this is a good start, and it's already affected the policy at the state level for California. They now have warnings on their website saying they cannot authorize certain commercial driver's license anymore. So it was under the Biden administration where no rules really applied. It was a free-for-all. And remember, Joe Biden at his core is not a progressive, okay? That's not who he is. But it's progressives that hijacked his administration. So imagine if it was a president who truly believed in these progressive policies, who truly believed in no restrictions, just free for all. Who cares? We don't know who's going to pay for it. Oh yeah, the billionaires will pay for it. Sure they will. Yeah, they'll just go somewhere else. We know. All right, let's hear more to this story, and then we're going to show you more to the story here.
I feel very confident that if we're able to take out the unlawful, untrained, non-English speaking drivers, we will not have an issue on our roadways.
He's also enforcing an old rule that if drivers can't understand English, like Harjinder Singh, you see here, he allegedly killed 3 in Florida, police can impound that truck during any inspection anywhere. Florida is suing California for giving him a license despite failing his test 10 times.
It isn't necessarily about immigration. It's about safety and enforcement of the standards that exist today.
So 6 states, Duffy says, improperly issued CDLs to non-citizens, many after attending so-called CDL mills that graduate students who can't speak English or understand rules of the road.
I want to make this perfectly clear to the driver training schools. If you are not following the rules and you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, we're going to ensure that we put you out of business.
So bottom line, about 17,000, they say, is just the tip of the iceberg. There are upwards of 200,000 undocumented truckers who could lose their license.
Now, what would be the pushback to this? Okay, let's exercise critical thinking here. One side is going to say, hey, you're going to hurt the economy. You're going to hurt people who are just trying to provide for their family. You see, what is the saying when it comes to success? The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if you're going to relax the laws here and the standards when it comes to this, what else will you do as well in other parts of governing, right? It goes back to what I just said about the Biden administration. There literally was no enforcement on anything. But they say that's trying to make this country better. They believe that's actually helping their constituents, which we know is completely false. Let's take a look at this number. I think this is interesting. Department of Homeland Security acknowledges a 50 million foreign-born population, specifically 53.312 million, while reporting Trump has caused a net decline of 2.2 million foreigners through self-deportations and forced deportations. Let me scroll down so you guys can see the graphic. That is just fascinating. It's terrible. And listen, I don't have a problem with someone trying to immigrate to this country. I just think, like anything else in life, we should be vetting these people. Let's go to the story that I have pinned on my X to make my point here. A story you might just be interested in. Just imagine you owned a 5,000 square foot home on 10 acres of land. And one day a stranger knocks on your door who is seeking to live on this property so they can have a better future. You vet the person, you make sure they are a good candidate. Eventually, you give them a 1/4 acre of land on your property. This continues as more and more people show up and you vet them as you did the first person. However, one day you notice a stranger jumping the fence to your property and deciding to claim a piece of your land for a better future. You did not vet them. They didn't ask. Essentially, they jumped the line and now they are trespassing. The people who you approved are disgusted at this behavior, but your family tell you it's okay. Just be compassionate. Let them stay. Okay, they're trying to have a better life. Then the next day, more strangers start jumping the fence because the word gets out. You still keep to your compassionate outlook, okay? However, after failing to vet the individuals who jumped your fence, eventually one of them assaults your children, even attempts to rob your house. You're stunned. You couldn't believe that this would happen to you. You thought you were doing a good deed, but the mistake you made was you forgot about law and order. There's a reason why you vetted the first stranger for this reason alone. Your safety, your family's safety. At this point, you have strangers committing crimes against your family on your land and other strangers draining your electricity, water, and gas. You have a decision to make. You can identify the ones who jumped your fence and kick them out of your property, or you can continue to do the things that got your children assaulted in the first place. The bottom line to the story is what? Decisions have consequences. When millions of unvetted people cross our border illegally, that was an extreme decision from the Biden administration, which triggers an extreme response from the Trump administration. It's called cause and effect. So the next time you see Democrats crying about ICE doing their job that they are authorized to do thanks to Congress, don't let your compassion blind you from exercising discernment surrounding law and order in our country. One murder, one crime, one assault, one robbery is too much, especially when it's from an illegal alien. Standards must be set high if we are to maintain our order, strength, and greatness as a country. When leaders make weak decisions, it's the subordinates who suffer. I do not feel so sorry for the people who crossed the border illegally. I do feel compassion for those who follow the law and did it the right way, and the American citizens who continue to be negatively impacted by this terrible decision from the Biden administration. So I think that's the summary here, guys. I think that's really what it's all about. It's about the safety. It's about the standards in our country. We need them to be enforced again. Does that mean ICE, DHS, the Trump administration is always going to do the right thing or the perfect thing? They will make mistakes. In some cases, they may go too far. But I'd rather hear of someone going too far than not going at all. Does that make sense? I'd rather hear somebody going a little too far than not doing anything at all. Because if you don't do anything at all, that's the worst thing. What is failure? Failure only happens when you quit, not when you try. So I commend the Department of Transportation for doing the right thing. They need to revoke these licenses immediately. And it's not just in California. I'm sure there are other states as well. But you guys let me know how you feel about that in the chat, and we will get to that here shortly. Now, let's go to our next update. This is about the government shutdown. And according to Fox News, they now have the numbers and how much of an impact this government shutdown really had. Let's take a look
at what the first round of that Democratic fight looked like. Nearly 42 million Americans lost their SNAP food assistance benefits. They were suffering. More than 5.2 million airline passengers faced flight delays and cancellations. 1.4 million federal workers went weeks without pay. And the White House estimates the economy lost about $15 billion every week of those 6 weeks. A massive hit of $90 billion over the entire shutdown. When you count everything all up, you can count them 10 zeros. House Republican Conference Chair Lisa McClain comes up in focus first.
$90 billion. I wonder if it was worth it for Democrats. This is the part of politics that makes people just disconnect, walk away. You know, and that's why for me, my purpose here is to continue to not only encourage you to not walk away, we have to continue to push back. Because if we don't do it, who else will do it? See, we're going to be back in this position 2 months from now. I hope you guys understand that. January 30th is the expiration date for the current CR that was signed last night by the president. And if they don't figure out ACA subsidies by the end of this year, you know the government's going to get shut down. It's a terrible miscalculation by Democrats overall because they hurt their voters. They are the ones who hurt their own voters. We have an example of that, by the way. We have another caller calling into C-SPAN, telling Democrats to their face how ridiculous they truly are. Let's listen to that.
Last call from Amanda in Colorado. Independent. You're on with Congressman Olszewski.
Hi, Congressman. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm glad that you brought up the merits of legislation because I would like to discuss the merits of the ACA legislation. And the reality is, and the fact is that premiums were not this high before ACA ever existed, and that's by design. It's hindered competition in the insurance space, and now this legislation, by design, has forced Americans to rely on the nanny state of government. And I would like your response to that, please.
Give you the final 2 minutes, Congressman.
Sure. We have to get to work to making healthcare more affordable and accessible for Americans.
Yeah, we know that.
And the costs have spiraled far too much out of control.
Oh, so he admits the truth, right? So they shut the government down over an issue regarding Obamacare, then only in the end to finally admit that the healthcare system is broken. The system that they put together, by the way, they are the ones who extended these ACA subsidies to begin with and set the expiration date. It's Democrats on this. This is all on them at this point. You could say, which is also true, that Republicans don't have a solution either, but they're not the one who came up with Obamacare. Okay? So two things can be true at the same time. Now, let's go to Senator John Fetterman, because they are still trying to rage against him regarding his vote for reopening the government. He also supports looking to extend the ACA subsidies, as we know, but he doesn't believe the government should have been shut down at all. Let's take a look at that now.
Just wanted you to tell our viewers, our friends, about your vote to reopen the government. What were you thinking, and why do you think it was in the best interest of the people of Pennsylvania?
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. It was always just country over the party. And now people it never made any sense to shut it down at that point anyway, because now if the Democrats in the Senate now decides in January, you're going to have the opportunity to shut it back down. And now we have a lot of time to make the argument to the nation that we want to extend those tax credits, and I actually voted countless times for those now too, and I'll be the same guy that's going to vote for them as well. Now, I refuse to put 42 million Americans, food insecurity in the middle of that. And now, why would we want to make flying left safe and that kind of chaos across our airports in the nation now too? And all the unions pay the military, pay everybody. And now that's a core responsibility for me as a senator to make sure that our government stays open and to continue to advocate the kinds of core values as a Democrat. And I'm not changing the party, but it's like, if a Democrat's not allowed to say, hey, it's wrong, it's always wrong to shut our government down. I think that's pretty reasonable, because that used to be our official position on it, honestly.
Right. Hey, Senator, let me ask you about exploding health care premiums. Obviously, Democrats, yourself included, it's about timing, want to make sure that those ACA benefits and subsidies continue. Could you talk a little bit about how much Pennsylvania voters are feeling the crush of rising insurance premiums?
Yeah, well, now that's also part of the history in all of this. These subsidies that was wrote by us, the Democrats. The Democrats wrote that. And they were designed to expire at the end of the year. When we were in the majority, we wrote that to expire. And now here we are back now to have this conversation. Now compare that in Pennsylvania. 2 million Pennsylvanians rely on SNAP to feed themselves and their family. And around 400,000 they receive these kinds of tax credits. And now we can fight for both. And that's, for me as a Democrat, that's what I'm doing. For me, the core kinds of disagreement perhaps is that shut our government down and hold all those people hostage. And I refuse to do those things. It's been a very easy vote.
Okay. Let's go back to that graphic that they showed. Stunning. Affordable Care Act enrollment. Do you guys see this? Go back to 2021. It was what, maybe 13 million? Why is it 24 million today? What changed between 2021 and 2025? Does anybody know the answer to that? If you do, put it in the chat. I think I know what the answer is, but I'd like to hear from you guys. What are your guys' thoughts about that? Were people forced to get on the Affordable Care Act all of a sudden? What's the difference between 2014 and 2021? It was there was a certain average, about maybe 10 million, 11 million was the average. That went on for almost, 8 years. So what changed all of a sudden? What went up? So they want to talk about, it's disrespectful. The name is called Affordable Care Act. There's nothing affordable about it, but fine. Maybe one idea is obviously, well, actually, I want to read what you guys have to say first before I give you my opinion on it. I just think it's crazy. They want the American taxpayer to fund it all, right? We fund it with our income. We fund it with our investments. We fund it even in retirement. It's fascinating what's going on here. It's crazy. And then they wonder why people don't trust anything that they say because they're on some crazy stuff. This is not what we voted for. And so hopefully they address this issue immediately. And that's why some people believe if you were just to remove at least 20 million of undocumented immigrants out of this country, we might see costs come down. That's what some people believe. Because I'm not too sure what truly changed between 2021 and 2025, except that we had a record number of people who crossed the border. Right? Let's see what you guys have to say. I'm on YouTube right now. Unaffordable Care Act. Exactly. Okay, here's an idea. Lazy people didn't want to go back to work from the pandemic. Okay, but that still doesn't explain why people on the Affordable Care Act. I mean, it literally almost tripled. Let's see, a 250% increase. Yeah, everybody says the same thing, illegals. I totally agree. Thank you, Code Zealot on Rumble. Yeah, see, it's interesting. It goes back to the American voter being a hypocrite. I talk about this all the time. Democrats say they are focused on an affordability crisis. They acknowledge that costs are way too high, even though they were the party in charge when costs hit a record high, by the way. And at the same time that they say all this, they don't want to address one of the main reasons why costs went up. Okay? And why cities and states are running out of money. And that is illegal immigration. It's funny. They think they can get away with both. It just doesn't work that way. I've said it time and time again, guys. If the Affordable Care Act requires government subsidies, then that means it's not affordable at all. That contradicts the whole point of it. It just fascinates me that our tax dollars we have to subsidize healthcare. Now, I understand if we're going to have a healthcare program, someone's going to have to pay for it. I get that. But calling it the Affordable Care Act is a complete joke. And you notice how they never show you what the costs were before Obamacare, right? It's as if they deleted all that information. All right, a couple more comments and then we'll keep pushing here. Yeah, and see, that's the thing. It's a great point. Someone put, hospitals shouldn't be allowed to charge $100 for a saline bag. Just put yourself in the position of a business owner, right? If the government is subsidizing, matter of fact, let's do this. Let's do Section 8 housing. See, they got it right with Section 8 housing, but they didn't get it right with healthcare. What do I mean by that? Section 8 housing, there's a cap on what the government will pay. They say, we're not paying past this amount. Makes total sense. And in some cases, they're not paying 100% of the rent either. They pay 80%, maybe 90%, depends on how many children you have, etc. But when it comes to healthcare, they're just going to fund it all or what? At least 90% is subsidized. So if the insurance company, from a business point of view, knows that the government's going to subsidize 90% of this, let's jack up the price. Let's make more money. Wouldn't you do that? I mean, I'm just speaking from a business point of view. If your main objective is to make as much money as practically as you can, you would jack up the price too. Because it's not coming from the customer, it's coming from the government, which technically is coming from the customer or other customers, by the way. You would jack up the price. And that is the problem right now. They've allowed these insurance companies to get away with it. But they think Border Patrol and ICE is the one terrorizing neighborhoods. Let's go to what the president said last night regarding these healthcare companies.
Disaster. And I'm calling today for insurance companies not to be paid, but for the money, this massive amount of money, to be paid directly to the people of our country so that they can buy their own health care, which will be far better and far less expensive than the disaster known as Obamacare. And I've had, I think, great support. I've even had Democrat support. So we want the money that would be going to the insurance company, which is hundreds of billions of dollars. You know, their stock prices have gone up by 1,000% in many cases, 1,000% over a short period of time, because our country stupidly pays them so much money with this Obamacare scandal. So I want the money to go directly to you, the people. And you go out and you'll buy your own health insurance and you'll negotiate different plans and you'll get much better insurance. And you.
Yeah. So what is the solution? There's a multitude of them. But I definitely think one of them has to be, we must break up the monopoly and the control that these insurance companies have on healthcare plans to begin with. I think there should be a minimum, maybe 10 to 15 different options. I don't care where you live. And I don't think you should be forced to choose a certain option. I think you should be able to choose the doctor, the plan, the where, the who, the when, the where, the why. So let me give you a great analogy. I'm not obviously serving in Congress. I am not on these committees. There are definitely people 100x more smarter than me regarding this stuff. But I think this analogy will paint the picture of what we need to do. Let's go back to the 90s. When you, and I'm not saying everybody here, but the 90s was probably the best decade when it came to the NBA. Why is that? Because everybody compromised, meaning what? The players didn't make it all about the money. They made it about the competition, right? It was a fans-driven league. The league was designed in a way that benefited the fans more than the players. And right now, what we have, if you take that same analogy, this is not a client-driven industry right now. The Affordable Care Act does not, in the end, truly benefit the American citizen. It is an insurance company industry right now. That's who is winning right now. Just like in today's NBA, the players are winning right now. The fans lose because everything is about the players. They want to sit out. They want to make extra money. They want to choose what they want to do. It's like a wave of feminism has infected the NBA. And as a result, who gets the short end of the stick? The fans do. That's why the product is terrible today. Well, that's why Affordable Care Act, that product is terrible as well, because they didn't actually think about the client. They sold the American citizen out for these insurance companies. Now, I'd like to believe that the people who are involved in this process are smart, okay, intelligent. They know what they're doing. But let's just get real. These people are a walking conflict of interest. They knew what they were doing when they put this together. They knew how this would benefit their pockets. You don't think these insurance companies are lobbying our representatives in Congress? You don't think some of these people in Congress have investments, meaning in the stock market on some of these companies? I'm sure if we did a deep dive, we'd find plenty of them. But it's interesting that they don't invest in the American people. And now it's going to come back to bite them in the you know what. And how does that happen? Well, if we keep going down this road of Obamacare, what will younger voters do? They're going to demand universal health care. That's the reality. So you got all these people in the suits, they go to Ivy League schools, they got all this experience regarding politics, but they forget the average person walking down the street. You keep jacking with their life long enough, they're going to do something radical. And that's what's on the horizon. I could see it coming. We know Bernie Sanders is insane with his rhetoric, but don't think people aren't taking him more seriously as Affordable Care Act continues to fail people. Don't think people aren't going to take Zoran Mondani seriously as capitalism continues to fail people. And I don't think capitalism truly is our problem here, by the way. It's Congress. I see the questions all the time on social media. Oh, what do you think is our problem in this country? What do you think is the biggest threat in our country? It's Congress. They make the laws, but it's interesting they haven't made any laws that puts leverage on them to do the right thing. So they get away with it. And that's not me trying to blackpill anybody. That's just the reality. And I think that's why we got to educate ourselves, our family members, definitely the younger generation, about what they can do to improve their financial situation and also set the right expectations. Okay? All right. Let's see. Let's go to what Fetterman also had to say, because let's go circle back on SNAP, right? So this is Senator Fetterman also talking about SNAP, and I guess MSDNC was attempting to get him to, I guess, call out the Trump administration or blame Republicans for something, but he continues to blame his own party for this nonsense.
Senator, how many families in Pennsylvania depend on SNAP benefits? And were you
2 million.
How many?
2 million. 2 million.
2 million families.
Oh my God.
So were you surprised at all with the intense effort made by the Trump administration to keep going to court to prevent families from receiving SNAP benefits?
No, not surprised. I'm just saying it's like, just keep it open. And now, as long as we keep our government shut down, we're not getting SNAP and we're not getting those tax credits that for the health care either. You're getting neither of them. And now, with our government is open, all of that now returns to us. And now we can have the opportunity to sell that to the American voters. And now the people, the real audience are the Republicans in the House and in the Senate to agree, yes, let's do this. But to people that are watching, it's like the Democrats, we designed these to expire at the end of the year. This wasn't something the Republicans are taking. It's like, that's how we designed this.
And Senator, good morning. We should get you on the top story of the day, the Epstein emails released yesterday. Give us your reaction to what you did read yesterday, and also what do you hope happens next? What else do you want to see make the light of day?
I think what's going to happen is it's entirely appropriate. Release everything. Release all of them. Another one of my questions is like, we sat on those for 4 years too. So, I don't really understand, either. There are a lot of questions. So when everything is released and everything comes out, and then we'll have a more full picture of exactly what's involved in all of these kinds of things. So yes, I do believe there will be enough votes to release those files, and then we can have the opportunity to absorb all of it, the totality of it.
All right. I think we talked about Epstein enough yesterday, and I don't know, just say it briefly and then move on, because it's the type of story I keep trying to tell you guys that I don't believe for a second Democrats truly care about victims. I haven't heard one representative out of Congress condemn the actions of a member of that royal family. Not once. No public statements, nothing. No letter. But they have time to draw up letters and condemn the Trump administration for things they disagree with politically. They don't care about victims, okay? A lot of this is for political gain, unfortunately. And a lot of it is a distraction from the real issues. That doesn't mean the victims don't deserve justice. They do. But I feel bad for these people because these members of Congress don't care about them like that. If they did, they would have prosecuted these people under the Biden administration. They would have drafted up a committee regarding this stuff. They did it with January 6th. They did it with the Affordable Care Act, but they don't do it on this. It's interesting. At any rate, speaking of the economy, let's go to this. Will Americans receive tariff stimulus checks this year? Well, right now it's coming in at 5% chance. Now, I wonder if they change the question, will Americans receive tariff stimulus checks next year? Why do I say this? Well, because the president's still hard pressed on this. Okay, so he wants to divert the money that we were going to send to these healthcare insurance companies to American citizens. He wants to divert some of the money from tariff revenue to the American citizen, and then you have these tax cuts that are going to come into play next year. A lot of people have worked overtime this year. A lot of people have received tips, and of course, Social Security. All of that is in the form of a deduction, by the way, which means just because you work $15,000 in overtime doesn't mean you receive $15,000 from the government. What happens is it offsets whatever your tax liability was. So it might be actually half of that, okay? At any rate, I'd be interested to see if the question was, will Americans receive tariff stimulus checks next year, and what that would be. But this is about us taking a look at Kalshi and these prediction markets. And if you guys want to bet on this stuff to make some, I don't know, maybe you're into that thing. Maybe you like to make money this way. Kalshi is a great platform. Right now, they're giving you guys a $10 promo. If you were to bet $100, you could find the link to execute on that in the description below this video. Now, personally, I've done this a couple of times myself. There was a time I did lose, and there was a time I did win. Just so you guys are all understanding, I'm not telling you to do something I haven't done myself. I'm not really a big gambler like that, just so you guys understand as well. I especially in Vegas. I mean, that's a whole nother story. But anyways, yeah, you guys can check out Kalshi for yourself. $10 promo. The link is in the description below. All right. So something that came up as we were going through all of this was about inflation, right? And we know that the president did not have his best week regarding the messaging regarding inflation. Okay. And so Scott Bessent has had to come out. Kevin Hassett has had to come out. Caroline Leavitt has had to come out, which was yesterday. And now you can tell that they're modifying their language. Okay. Someone has clearly said something in the White House that says, hey, we need to kind of figure out how we're going to talk about this in a better way, because we're almost sounding like we're the Biden administration all over again. Well, let me show you an example of that. Listen to what Kevin Hassett had to say earlier this morning.
The bottom line is that when Joe Biden and the Democrats were running the country over the last 4 years, the typical American family lost $3,400 worth of their purchasing power. And already in President Trump's first few months of this year, then people have gained about $1,200 of it back. And so we understand that people still feel the pain from the deep hole that Biden's policies dug, but we're making up progress. We're making up progress fast. And you had a clip of Secretary Bessent, my good friend, a little bit later saying that we're going to close the gap and fill the hole that Biden dug relatively quickly. We see really high wage growth, and inflation is much more under control.
Okay, let's go to this graphic here I have on the screen. Point number one, what can the administration truly do to bring costs down? We've talked about this ad nauseum already. And if, again, the only tried and true method of doing it has happened throughout history, no matter who the president was, and that was a form of a recession. Let's throw that out the window right now because they're not going to do it. So what's the next thing that they can do? Well, it would be a two-pronged approach, which means to cut spending dramatically and increase supply, meaning build more homes, create more jobs. You got to do both of those at the same time from the federal government's point of view, okay? And at the same time, the Fed needs to actually increase interest rates. And listen, just being frank with you guys, in the beginning, I actually didn't agree with that take. But this is about critically thinking and realizing, wait a minute, if we actually look at the data, the numbers, and the history of the way the economy is supposed to work and how costs truly come down, the Fed has to increase interest rates, actually. Why? Because it prevents people from borrowing money they don't have. And when people can't borrow money they don't have, that means they're not going to spend money they don't have. And when you cause spending to go down from the federal government and the consumer, that's when costs start to come down because the demand drops. And once the demand drops, now these companies have to think twice about how they're pricing things. And we saw the polar opposite with COVID when everybody and their mom got 3 COVID checks and wanted to go down to your local furniture store. They were able to jack up the price. Not to mention, if that furniture store got that product from China, we know there was an increase of price because the supply chain was cut off at a certain period of time. So there was a backlog, which means the demand superseded the supply, which means if you want this product, you're going to have to pay more money. You put both of those together, you got record inflation. At any rate, people are continuing to talk about this, and so I want to bring it up and address it here. The unemployment rate for U.S. college graduates is now 9.3%, higher than a peak of 8.7% during the 2008 Great Financial Crisis. This year, the U.S. approved around 200,000 H-1B visas. Now, isn't that interesting? Let's take a look at the graph here so you guys can see it for yourself, okay? I'm not just blowing smoke. You see, this is why Charlie Kirk had it right. College is a scam. So let's go back to solutions here, because I can complain like everybody else, but let's focus on solutions. What should universities do? Actually, let's start at the top. What should the Department of Education and the federal government, particularly the Trump administration, should do is he should threaten to freeze federal funding. He should threaten to revoke visas immediately unless these universities agree to develop an accelerated training program for trade schools or for tech jobs, AI jobs, engineering. Like, stop wasting young adults' time with these nonsensical curriculums, okay? Like, half of college is a waste. Why? Because they want to make money. I don't care if these universities go out of business. Let them. We know they've made more than enough money on the backs of millennials and Gen Xers. We already know that. There should be a day of reckoning for universities, by the way. Now, some of them did go out of business because they were sued, by the way, by the Department of Education for the student loan scam that took place. You guys, I don't know if you guys remember that. There was a lawsuit because basically they were lying to people in regards to, hey, if you go to our college and you get this degree, you're going to be able to get this particular job. We got you. Obviously, that was so far from the truth. Well, some of these colleges actually went out of business because they went bankrupt because they were sued, okay, for lying about that stuff. But I think that's only step one. There needs to be a true day of reckoning for universities out there. They have failed the young adults in our country, no question. And so when I'm seeing a 9.3 unemployment rate for a recent college graduate, you know something is broken. But then they want to get mad at young adults for looking at socialism. What do you expect them to do exactly? You know, so I think we need to give people the full picture here that from a legislative point of view, from the government's point of view, they got to fix what's broken. I already offered one solution. Now, on the individual level, young adults, I told you guys this every single time, it's 3 things. First, it's their mindset. Why do they need to work on their mindset? Because chances are if you went to a university, you're poisoned at this point with progressive ideals, okay? So you need to develop critical thinking skills. You need to understand that you become what you think about. If you're going to a university and for 4 years, a college professor is telling you being white is guilty, you're wrong for being white, that black people are oppressed, and if you believe in your own Christianity and your religion, that you're actually hurting people. And if you believe that there's only 2 genders, you're a bigot. There are professors literally spewing this stuff. So for 4 years, through the repetition of hearing that, if someone has not already developed their ability to reason and discern, they're just going to accept it. That's why I say step 1 is mindset. They got to challenge the current belief system that's been passed down to them. Step number 2 is financial literacy. They have to understand the way money works. You need to spend less than you make. That is the name of the game, okay? We don't have to get into stocks and bonds and all this other stuff. Just don't spend more money than you make, okay? And then step number 3, you got to figure it out. Maybe you go into a career, like that's why I said trade school, That's a great way to start. Join the military. It's another great way to start because you're going to get full benefits. We know that. You're going to serve the country. You're going to develop a lot of skills there. Or become an engineer, a lawyer, things like that. You're going to go into debt. Go into debt for a career where you're going to make a lot of money, okay? Or you start your own business because maybe you've already developed some skills as a young adult that you can use to solve people's problems. You could, basic level ever is cutting grass, okay? Cleaning windows, cleaning homes, cleaning roofs, okay? Gutters, putting up Christmas lights, right? Which I see around where we live right now. Someone already put up a sign that they'll come and put up your Christmas lights. These are all easy ways for the young adult to make more money in today's economy. But they got to be told these things, okay? Now, let me go one step further here to this particular post that was put up yesterday. It's gone viral. 40 million views. Look at this. 40 million views. It was posted on Veterans Day, November 11th. I'm going to read it to you guys, and then we'll talk about it in the chat. You want a house? Cool, cool. When are you going to give up your $1,500 smartphone that you buy the new version of every year or so? When are you canceling all your subscription services? When are you giving up Uber and Uber Eats? When are you going to stop buying a $7 coffee every morning, sometimes twice a day or more? When are you going to do without a week-long or longer vacation at least once a year to some exotic locale? When are you going to sell your brand new car, buy a beater, and drive it until the wheels fall off instead of trading in every 3 to 5 years? When are you going to stop clubbing every weekend? When are you going to let go of your 100 a week or more booze weed habit? When are you going to quit eating out almost exclusively? You're not. You don't really want a house. So obviously this post triggered a lot of people, to say the least. Someone put, yeah, F right off. iPhone 8 Plus, no subscriptions currently, have never used Uber or Uber Eats. I make coffee at home. I haven't been on vacation in 5 years. I drive an 03 Saturn Ion. I haven't been to a club. I make food at home. And fine, I guess he's admitting that he does drink beer and he smokes cigarettes. I make $1,000 a week. By the end of the month, I can save $500. I'll have my down payment for my house in approximately 10 effing years if prices don't rise more. I'll be 37. Effing joke. Okay. All right. So let's just address this. I think most of the post really should not be geared towards Gen Z. This is a millennial and Gen X problem right here. These are the people who do these things, in my opinion. Okay. I know that because I'm a millennial myself and I've seen it. All right. Now let's talk about home ownership. It goes back to what I was saying with mindset. You got to set the right expectations. People are expecting to get out of college and I'm going to make 6 figures immediately, or I'm going to get out of college and, in the next couple of years, I'm going to buy a home. It doesn't work that way. It hasn't worked that way in quite some time, actually. And so the expectations have to be, instead of focusing on trying to buy a home, thinking that is the American dream, the expectation should be, wait a minute, first, I need to invest in myself, right? I need to make myself one of the most valuable people I know. How do I do that? I got to improve my mindset first. And then I got to get to working on my skills. You see, you don't have to look at what the federal government is doing as far as how you're going to improve your financial situation. So yes, broadly speaking, their policies, has it made it a little harder, of course, today for people to buy a home? No question. But the principles are still the same, which are you need to get into a career, or you need to start a business, or do both. You need to find ways to increase your income, also cut down your expenses, and then you need to start saving money. And then when you're ready to buy a home, which may not be in a year, it may take you 5 years. It may take you 10 years. There are people who went bankrupt and it took them 10 years to finally climb out of that. Okay, this is nothing new. The problem with people today is they get into this whole sob mindset of like, oh, well, that's not fair. Life's not fair. Whoever told you that? I think that one of the biggest lessons I ever learned in life is like, both of my parents were drug addicts. Life's not fair. Okay, single mother. Life's not fair. Someone sexually abusing me as a child. Life's not fair. My adopted mother dying in high school. Life is not fair. Having to raise myself and figure out how to be a man on my own. Life is not fair. Okay? But you know what's interesting? It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is, what are you going to do moving forward? That's what matters. And some people, do they start off in a better position because of their family and their upbringing? Of course they do. But that doesn't mean they end up in the same location, by the way. That doesn't mean they end up winning in life. In fact, I would argue more people who grow up in privilege have a harder time being successful in life than people who don't. Why? Because it goes back to step number one, mindset. So this post is making a point that for the people out there from a financial literacy point of view, stop spending more money that you don't have. Okay, that's obvious, but don't get into this mindset like you can't ever buy a home. You can, but it may take you a little longer because of the current economy or because of your current income level. So the question every single time is, what can I do about it? That's the most important question, because once you're facing a situation, there's no going back. The only thing you could do is, what am I going to do right now and moving forward? And I think this is the message that the administration needs to adopt. Listen, everybody knows what happened under the Biden administration, but we know that already. So what are we doing moving forward? That's what voters want to hear from the administration. What are we doing moving forward? What steps are we taking to bring down the high cost of living? That's all they really need to do. They don't need to argue that, well, it's not our fault and it happened. Everybody knows that already. And honestly, most people don't care at this point. And that's what I'm saying. From a messaging point of view, they're going to obviously start to tune in a little bit, because I know they probably have heard a lot of backlash. But at any rate, I thought I would share this post with you guys because I think this is the current debate happening in our society. You have people trying to blame boomers for what happened. I don't think boomers have much to do with policy in Congress. Yes, there are boomers who work in Congress. It's not a boomer issue. It is a Congress issue. Okay? That's what has happened. Now, this person, I just want to read this to you guys. This person said, neither my wife nor have I upgraded our phone in 5 years. We have 2 subscription services. I never use Uber Eats. Neither my wife nor I get $7 coffees. The only vacation we've taken in the past year was to go camping. We have 2 vehicles. We stay at home on the weekends. We never had a drug habit. We eat home, friends most of the time. We have 5 kids, still can't afford a house. So when I read this to this guy named Gabriel, my question is, Gabriel, what do you guys do for money? What is your job? What is your career? Right? And then my question is, so what are you doing to raise your income level? Because that's the next question. What can you do about it? You see, this is the beauty of capitalism, folks. If you start to think just a little bigger, the answer will come to you. So you can't change the fact that home prices have skyrocketed. There's no going back on that now. So you have to adapt, right? What did William Toff, I believe his name, said that learneth that the 21st century are going to be people who cannot read and write, but people who are willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn. In one word, that means adapt. And so how do I increase my income, Devori, if I'm an electrician or I work at a company doing IT? It goes back to entrepreneurship, man, every single time. If you already are in a career and you feel you're not going anywhere with your money and how much you make, you got to start thinking outside the box. Chances are you probably only work 9 to 5. So you probably have a couple of hours, maybe 5 hours max between the rest of the week and the weekends to do your own thing. And the crazy part about it is, for people who are in those positions, they're going to find out pretty quickly, if they take that skill that they're not getting paid a lot of money for and go do it for other people, they'll get paid 10 times more. That's the fascinating part about it. You have people right now complaining about their financial situation, and they are electricians working for an electricity company. Why aren't you a handyman on the weekends then? That's just a prime example. Okay? Now, I could probably do this exact exercise on every single job out there. Because at the end of the day, if you're working an hourly job, you're already in trouble. Okay? Hourly jobs are like temporary, meaning if you're working minimum wage, that's not enough. Okay? That should be like a stepping stone. You got to get yourself into a career. or start a business, or do both at the same time. And a business doesn't mean you got to go hire 1,000 people. Just be self-employed. And that self-employment money could replace your 9 to 5, but it might take time. So you got to set the right expectations. Guys, why did I spend so much time talking about this right now? Because everybody and their mom wants to complain about the country right now. They want to complain about affordability. They want to blame the Republicans, they blame the Democrats. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot do anything about that right now. But what can we do? We can start speaking up about solutions, opportunities, ideas to help each other. I'm sure you have people in your life who are in that particular position. And guess what? You might communicate to them what I just told you, and they may not listen. But you know what? At least you provided a solution. You left them better off than you found them. That's the whole purpose here. Some people just, they won't listen. They will continue to struggle. There's nothing we can do about it. But that doesn't mean we need to stay quiet. All right. Let's go to chats, answer questions, and then we'll wrap up today. Okay. Let's see here. He's right. I changed my trade at age 55. I'm 60 now, but I've set myself up to make $90,000 a year. You know, it's interesting because I also saw a post where somebody was complaining about the high cost of living in California and all this other stuff, right? And they're complaining they can't afford a home. And hold on. Was it this post? Oh, here it is. This is funny, okay? It's right here in front of us. So someone responded to this guy and put, move to a cheaper state. That's what we did. You know what this guy said? We really love our church too much to do that. Then don't complain. Right? You can't have it both ways. So if you're going to be a complainer, you got to be someone who's willing to be a part of the solution. Okay? You know, if you want to stay because your church, by all means, go ahead and do that. Just don't be a complainer. Because, see, this is my thing about life. Unless you have exhausted every option available to you, you shouldn't be complaining. How do you know something isn't working? Because you've gone through every single option in front of you. That's how you'll know. And time. So I know people personally and acquaintances and, you know, people I serve. It's all the same thing. They're not willing to pay a price. That price could be moving. That price could be inconvenience. That price could be shifting or changing careers. That price could be downsizing. That price could be canceling certain liabilities. That price could be you bought a home in 2023 and 2024. You now can't afford the home because you're starting to struggle, and the price is you got to sell it. But mentally, we program the American citizens to believe they're a failure if they sell that home. That's not a failure. A failure would be quitting. Failing would be like not acknowledging the problem you're in and refusing to solve it. You're dealing with insanity at that point. See, there's a lesson you learn in entrepreneurship. You're not a failure if you go out of business. Okay? The smart entrepreneurs know the P word, which is pivot. Sometimes you're in a business. It's supposed to make sense. You should make a lot of money. You should be successful, but it just isn't the right time. The wrong market, the wrong customers, the wrong location. And maybe you needed this opportunity to learn that. So you got to pivot. That's what we need to do in our own personal life. Sometimes we just need to pivot. We're going in the right direction, but we're kind of off, a little bit. We just need to slightly turn the wheel. And that could be moving, changing careers, making a different decision with your lifestyle. Just that one decision could change everything. Okay. I am sick of people telling me to move out of California. We bought our house during the 2008 crash, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, nice neighborhood, $1,200 a month mortgage. We're not leaving anytime soon. I'm not telling you to leave anytime soon. I'm talking about people who are struggling financially. I'm talking about people who are complaining about their situation and they haven't done anything to change it. That's who I'm talking about. So I don't know where you got that message from. Let's keep going. Our business saying is the best. Our subject, I don't know what. Yeah, let me go back to this one. I remember my best friend's parents paid $160 for their house in 1998. It was the most expensive house I'd ever stayed the night in. Last year, I bought my current home cash for $300. It's probably half the size, right? Oh, okay. I don't mean you're telling me that, Devore. Okay, I got you. Nope, I understand, Meg. No problem. Someone said I'd give an arm for a $1,200 house payment. Yeah, you see, we're still kind of, as a society, we just haven't. See, how do you solve a problem? You just have to accept the reality first, right? I'm sorry, you guys can't even see my comments. My apologies. You have to accept the reality first, right? Some people are still in denial, right? So we have to accept what has happened, so then we can start focusing on what we're going to do about it. My townhome rent is $3,200. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And this is where the rubber meets the road. The rents have gone up, the mortgages have gone up, but the question is, have wages gone up? No, not at the same level. That's why inflation is punishing. So how do you bring costs back down to where wages are? A recession, ladies and gentlemen, but that's not going to happen. So what can you do about it? I already went through it. You got to raise your income, change your lifestyle. And we need to continue to voice this to our representatives. This is why I'm continuing to talk about this now, because I think it's worthy to talk about. Because if we don't, and we go into denial mode, and we gaslight people, I'm telling you, Gen Z will do the most radical thing ever, and they will go for socialism and elect progressives. That is a legitimate outcome. So it's not that we need to bail them out. It's just that we need to give them the right information for the ones who are willing to listen. And by the way, guys, I make a lot of money now. Okay. The lesson I learned from being broke, 400 credit score, having your car repossessed, and red digits in your bank account to making a lot of money that allows someone to live a comfortable life is that, guys, you can make a lot of money. It's still not going to solve your problems. The only thing money is going to allow you to do is help other people, of course. It'll allow you to invest in a bigger way. And it's a tool that can help make your life really comfortable. It can solve inconveniences pretty quickly, right? But outside of that, that's it, right? So, my thing to people is like, you don't need to, especially the younger generation, you don't need to be like, I need to be a billionaire. I need to be the next Elon Musk. You don't need to do any of that. You need to focus on developing yourself. Right. And also, you got to get your relation. Well, I'm not trying to make this podcast all religious, but you got to get your relationship right with the Lord. That's what I would tell you, young people as well. Because faith, mindset, that's the foundation of everything. You don't have those two things, you're cooked. Even if you make a lot of money, you'll lose it or you won't be happy. So, these are just basic principles that have been timeless since the beginning of time. All right, let's go to YouTube and then we'll wrap up. I want to make sure I answer any questions on YouTube here. Here's one. I bought my first home in 2013. I ran 2 businesses, worked, enjoyed my family. At one point, my house tripled in value. At the same time, I was done with California, moved and purchased my home cash. Yeah, a lot of people from California, they were able to do that. No car payment, no credit cards. Don't spend more than $30 a month on a cell phone. Yep. We have become a consumer nation. Everybody thinks they need all this other stuff. They really don't need it. Someone says, what is your favorite email from the Epstein files? I don't have a favorite email. Why would I have a favorite email? There is an issue of earning and spending at a higher rate. When you move to a lower cost of living area, lower wages come with it. So it's difficult to pay the debt they incurred at the higher rate. I don't think that is entirely true. What I mean by that is it's obviously it depends on your career. I mean, there are businesses here in Texas that make more money than businesses in California. Right? There are people who make more money in Texas than they do in California. There's a reason why the whole tech industry moved here. Let me read this. You missed my super chat. No, I didn't. I can go back to it. Let's go back to it. You wrote, how do you feel being such a strong supporter of President Trump? Given the recent Epstein files, is it embarrassing? Do you feel dirty? All right. Well, I know you're not asking that question in good faith, but because I'm very transparent, I'll answer it. One, the president has never, and we can literally use the word never, has never been implicated in anything regarding Epstein. Number two, his only crime, if there is one, is his unwillingness to just support releasing all of the files. And that means either he is being leveraged by other rich people and powerful people that may have impacts in other areas of our policies, like foreign policy as an example, or some other back-end deals regarding special intelligence or classified information that we don't have access to as far as the public is concerned, that if they just go down this road, could impact certain things. I don't know. I mean, that's all speculation. But his only mistake is just not explaining that properly. His mistake was allowing Pam Bondi to be the person who was talking about it. That's it. But to accuse the president of covering up a pedophile ring, which is what Hakeem Jeffries is running with, that's partisan games. That's all partisan right there. None of that is rooted in facts. The fact is that multiple administrations, including Democrats, had access to a lot of this information and didn't really do anything about it. It's a fact that he cut off Jeffrey Epstein at one point in time. It's a fact that every victim has nothing to say negatively about the president. Why is that? Think about the powerful people that were involved. They've accused all these other powerful people, but they haven't accused the president, even before he was president. So, I mean, I know you guys want it so bad to be that he is the source of all this. It's his scandal. It's not. It's not his scandal. And when they play these games, they get away from what's most important, which is the victims and the justice for them. All right, we're going to move on. Started my business, moved myself in business to the U.S. the right way, green card. Whoa, soon citizenship. Trust me, there's nothing you cannot achieve in life when you set your mind straight. Well, congratulations. Congratulations. It's interesting because foreigners sometimes, well, I'd say foreigners are much more successful than people who are born here because they're coming from a place, like I said, they want to talk about what's not fair or what's unfair. I mean, a lot of these foreigners are coming from places where we would pass out. Some of these American citizens would pass out at these conditions. We have become so privileged, so much convenience, that we forgot what it means to actually live a life, to be present, to accept resistance. And that's why I'm a big proponent that younger adults should join the military, go to another country, get around different cultures, because it prepares you for life. Let's keep going. Yeah, and I think this is the bottom line. We're going to wrap up. You have done wonderful work here, but the content in particular is very important for people to hear and take in. This mindset will pull people up, and they need someone like you to coach them along. You know, this is the thing that always made me hesitant to talk about politics because I knew how negative it is at times. It could really make you feel deflated. But now having spent time going over this every single day with people and doing these videos in the show, I am more convinced than ever that it's not all negative. It's not all negative. That the same principle applies. Before there is politics, there is you, your life, and the decisions that you make. And we should be politically aware of what's going on in our country so that we know what to vote for, especially at the local level. And now that alternative media has a larger voice, which means you have a larger voice, we should be politically aware so we can voice our concerns to the administration and our representatives. That's true. But at the same time, we also have to focus on what's happening in our own home and to continue to help our neighbors and the younger generation have that same mindset and not slip into what Democrats have done, which is everything is from a lack mindset. Everything is from doom and gloom. Everything is Armageddon with them. That's why, in my opinion, they'll continue to lose unless Republicans help them obviously win. Because the way they talk is on a lower frequency. Now, you have to be a little careful, like we said, with the president and the administration talk about the economy, but usually his message is on a higher frequency. It's usually rooted in optimism. We're going to make this country great again. This is the hottest country. We are doing this. We're doing that. We're going here. We're going there. Right? It's optimism. And a dose of optimism is good. Because we know for a fact if without optimism and all you do is think negatively, you're not going to get what you want. Negative thinking leads to negative results every single time. And with that, I'm going to wrap up here. Hopefully this was valuable to everybody that tuned in today and watched the show. Common sense commentary for these uncommon times. If you got value, please like, share, and subscribe to us, whether you're on Rumble, YouTube, you follow me on X or Facebook. Please take the time out to do that now. That is the best way to support the show. Also, secondly, please share this with someone you care about, maybe someone in the younger generation, maybe someone that you know is open-minded. Share this information with them. I think we shared the full picture of what's going on here in today's show. And finally, I just want to say how grateful I am for your attention today. So, having said that, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America, ladies and gentlemen. I will not be live tomorrow. I will be on the Tim Pool IRL podcast tomorrow. So, but we still will upload videos, just so you guys understand. All right.